Let's get started. I would like to introduce KYZEN's own Jody Saultz.
Thank you, Sherry. Thanks for joining today's Tech to Tech. We're going to talk a little bit about batch washers and a few tips and tricks to make you, hopefully you can get the most out of your machine. So when people think about batch machines, they really, they think they're just like an oversized dishwasher. And we ask that you please do not stack PCBs in like this picture on the right. And in fact, manufacturers of batch equipment really spend a lot of time on equipment, making sure that at the end of the day, customers get a piece of equipment that is capable and reliable and that it gives quality product at the end of the day. These batch machines are available for their front loading. Some are big, some are small, some are wide, but pretty much they're a small footprint area versus a inline machine. And along with the machine side, there's 4 process variables that you really need to pay attention to when cleaning with the batch machines. Time, energy, solvency, and temperature. Important to get impingement and dwell time at the board. Energy, you want to make sure that your machine is capable of giving mechanical energy and the proper PSI and flow rate. And you also want to make sure that you're using the right chemistry for that flux at the right concentration. And last but definitely not least is to make sure that the temperature is up at the higher side so you can ensure the solubilizing of the flux as well. So PCB design, optimizing this cleaning process and is dependent on defining and controlling factors of cleaning flux. How you position a board or how you place a board inside a batch machine is very critical. And we'll talk about that in a minute because this will have a great impact on the end result. So spray and air type cleaning tools, factors that impact the rate of function are deflection, where we talk about pressure at the board level or impingement, and nozzle type and coverage. So batch machines have a little bit different energy and directional forces per se versus a inline machine. Most batch cleaners clean with a conical type or a fan type nozzle. These nozzles are very good for flooding, but if you think about a board in a batch machine usually stands up, you don't really get that flooding type action, and you get about 10 to 75% loss per inch of pressure depending on the nozzle type. And then lastly, a coherent jet is the best high impact nozzle type with the least amount of pressure drop per inch, but it does deliver high pressure with the smallest amount of coverage. So delivering these cleaning agents to clean under these termination points, nozzle types, both flow and pressure are important, like we talked about, and positioning in a batch basket or a batch process area needs to overcome shadowing. Like I said, these fan nozzles do a really good job for coverage, but they don't have a lot of impact pressure at the board level versus a coherent jet type spray system. So there's many different kind of cleaning options. There's vertical board systems that hold the boards vertically with linear spray. You have rotating spray bars, and then you have high pressure baskets. But what's really most important is being able to understand what's happening inside the process area, especially with these rotating type systems. If you look at these pictures, some of the manufacturers do make these spray bars where they are adjustable, but if you're rotating in a circle in a square basket, there's definitely room for loss for fluid delivery at the board level. And then there's also some horizontal and vertical type systems which absolutely do help on board shadowing, but in most cases it doesn't cover everything. So the sprayable area is, in my opinion, the most important, and how you put those products inside. Some boards or whatever product you're running may not see any impingement pressure at all. It may get some wetting action or some fluid, but it's if you look at this picture, when you're rotating this square basket, there's basically dead zones. And I like to call these missing in action zones. If you'll take a look at this picture on the left, you can clearly see that the components or connectors on the far outside edge, when you have a rotating spray bar on the top and the bottom, even though that it has fan nozzles in there, that gives you a little bit more coverage than a coherent jet. Some of these components still are not going to be able to have fluid delivered to them at all. And even if you do get that chemistry or that fluid inside those pin connectors or underneath certain components, that doesn't say that you're going to be able to rinse that that fluid or that material out of there. So the picture on the right is just another good example of the loss coverage that you're getting in a rotating type system versus the square process area. Cleaning basket designs. If you'll take a look at these, there's a dishwasher type rack with a stackable rack on the second picture, and then a vertical board that probably has linear spray in it, and then there's also a high pressure spray basket on the right. But once again, the way that you face this product, especially in these rotating spray board baskets, is very important. We like to face these connectors down so they can have their own gravity drain, so you don't have to try to force that fluid out of there with any kind of air system. And then also face those most complex assemblies toward the bottom as well. It's a good practice to get into to try to put 1 to 3 inches between these assemblies, depending on the boards, because sometimes even though you don't have tall standoffs or tall components, if you stack those really, really close, you're still going to have some issues. So board positioning in these chambers are probably the most important part of setting these boards up inside this process area. Not only do you have to worry about board shadowing, as you can clearly see this picture, this machine is very loaded with large boards and small boards, and you're going to have a lot of shadowing take place in there. The bottom right picture, it illustrates a fully loaded basket that's going to get very little impingement pressure from the manifold or the spray system. And then not only do you have to worry about board shadowing, but you can also get into component shadowing like the illustration on the top right shows. So just be aware of those. If you have a lot of large connectors or capacitors or whatever, try to put those to the bottom side so you can at least try to get fluid or some impingement pressure to those smaller components. So if you think about drying in the batch machines, there's typically about 3 different types. There's radiant heating elements, combo heating, which is a radiant element in the bottom, just recirculating hot air. And then there's also a offline heater type box system that heats the air offline and basically recirculates through the system itself as well. More tips and tricks. These are also very important. Unfortunately, we don't have time to talk about them, but you need to ensure that your machine is getting properly mixed chemistry when it's being delivered to the fluid. So stir motors or recirculating type systems need to make sure that you get that fluid mixed up. Concentration sampling for checking concentration to make sure you're at spec. You don't want to be cleaning at 5% when you need to be cleaning at 10 or 15%. And of course, maintenance is very important. Make sure those nozzles are not being clogged up and the seals are not having failures and that your screens are clean and clear. And then concentration makeup. Are you really dosing chemistry in, or are you doing that by hand, or do you have a chemtrollers? You don't want your production people to be handling chemistry all day long. And then of course, recipes, OA and RMA recipes. I always tell customers, try to pick a recipe that best suits all of those, so you don't have multiple recipes. And then look for those problematic components. Avoiding shadowing is very, very important in a batch machine, just because the way the spray system is set up inside these cabinets. And then of course, if we talk about summary real quick, rework cleaning is an art. It's not like stacking a dishwasher. Pay attention to your spray system and put product in there accordingly. A poor cleaning process will absolutely cause failures, and it's going to be very costly down the road. Baseline your ionic cleanliness. Clean the entire assembly before putting assembly back into production or inspection or whatever step it's going to next. We like to say as chemistry people, please try to clean the first side and then clean the second side. But in most cases, whether it's inline or batch, most times they get cleaned after 2-side reflow. And then board orientation is very important for cleaning, rinsing, and drying. And then of course, when you have small boards, make sure they're placed in some kind of a basket or a fixture to keep from damaging those. So we didn't talk a lot about rinsing in batch machines, but You can sure check out our Tech to Tech page and download and listen to the August edition of last year that was presented by Ram Whistle. Very good, interesting topic on rinsing. And with that, I will turn it back over to Sherry. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jody. If you would like to discuss this topic further, please contact your local KYZEN representative or send an email to tech@kaizen.com, and we will have one of our cleaning experts schedule a follow-up with you as soon as possible. Again, we thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great day.